In a world filled with screens and distractions, we invite you to reconnect with the natural world around you. Welcome to Nature Bound, a podcast dedicated to unpacking the intrinsic bond between humans and nature. We'll uncover the benefits of spending time outdoors, including how a nature-centric lifestyle can improve your mental health, elevate your leadership skills, and unleash your creativity. And now here's your host, outdoor enthusiast, and renowned author of The 7 Principles of the Magic Rock, Emanuel Rose.
Welcome to this episode of Nature Bound. Really excited to bring you the second part of the 2-part turkey hunting series. And got the chance to speak with a very experienced turkey hunter named Mark Avolio. And Mark, thanks for taking time today to check in and have a conversation with me about one of our favorite topics.
Pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you bet. So let's see. Let's just set the stage here. How many seasons have you been chasing these noble birds?
Been 15 seasons, so qualify that a little bit. First couple of years, first 7 years was just, the little 3 or 4 day trip in. This year and that was not. And I went semi-retirement, and now I go for the last 7 or 8 years or something. Now I just the entire 6-week season.
Yeah, so that ends up being hundreds of days and probably dozens of different hunters that you've been out chasing them with.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's kind of so tongue in cheek. I usually have on the weekends. I take the weekends off from turkey hunting.
Yeah, let the guys who are working get out there and fumble around a little bit, huh?
Exactly.
Well, the last couple of years, there's been a good number of turkeys where you are. What are you expecting similar results this season?
Absolutely. I think that the could be as banner a year as 2016 was 16, and I want to say right. No, the turkeys at the end of the day are still an upland bird, and you need that carry over or winter survival, and uh, before that, you need a good nesting season.
Yeah.
So all indications from last year are that we'll have a good crop of mature teams this year. We were seeing a lot of jakes. I mean, flocks of jakes last year, which was a bit unusual. So we really, for all practical purposes here in the Northwest, haven't had much of a winter. I think we had maybe about a week of really bad winter, which is not going to affect those turkeys. And just anything. We've had a lot of moisture up here in the Northwest. Things are incredibly green, which bodes well for the nesting season for all upland birds. And, we'll see what happens. And it's been up to to do this every spring. It seems like it's been relatively mild up to this point too. So I know the snow levels are way up from where they were the last 2 years. Good snowpack above that.
Yeah.
Right now, I think, because last year we couldn't get, above about 3,000 feet till the first part of May, and now I don't think there's any snowpack below about 3,800 feet.
Yeah, that's what it seems like.
I keep track of all of that stuff.
No, you have to in order to make good decisions, right?
Yeah. So it'll be an interesting. We'll see. Again, it's wet. It's been very wet. I just went through the Columbia River Gorge yesterday between Portland and the east side, and it's already so green in the gorge it hurts your eyes.
Yeah, well, that's good. That bodes well, like you said, for nesting and food. And seems like there's plenty of water up high, which is good. Even down here where I am in Nevada, we haven't had much winter, but the 8,000, 9,000 feet, they're stacked with snow. So it's good. So I got a question. So I located a flock of turkeys, which was good, and I got a buddy who works on a road crew who gave me a visual confirmation of another flock of turkeys. So I got the town turkeys. At least I know where they are.
At the 7-Eleven.
Well, the towns aren't that big, but the ones that I found, they're next to a river, and then they got to cross a road, and then they get up into national forest. So, um, my plan is I've done a little bit of desk scouting on the computer. I got the springs marked, and I got the open spaces marked. Any and then the roads, the current roads and the old roads. So I know kind of how to hike and get to those springs. But any other hints for me about how I might look for sign?
Yeah, well, first of all, uh, the, my experience in the areas that I hunt in the Blue Mountains in Oregon, is that they need flat ground. They're not going to strut uh, on the hills. They just don't do it. So you need some flat ground. I mentioned this before in another podcast. They absolutely love anywhere where you can find some flat ground with water near. They just love it to death. The other thing, though, to keep in mind, I don't know how vertical the area is that you're looking at, but those birds will migrate up out the spring. So, like where I hunt the Blue Mountains in the town, you can go there in the first part of go there, say in December, to go do some other bird hunting, and there might be 300-400 turkeys in town.
Right.
Of course, creates a mess in town. But by the opening day of turkey season, all of those turkeys are essentially gone. They start migrating up the hill, up an elevation. So be advised that where you find them now and you're pre-scouting,
Yeah.
they may not be there in 3 weeks. They'll be up higher. So, but that's the biggest piece of advice I can give you is to where those animals go. Granted, they can only go up so high depending on what the terrain is like.
Right.
But I mean, last year, geez, we had chances at birds down at 3,000 feet, and I think you got one up at 5,000 feet. Same week we were hunting together.
Right.
So that's the only thing I would recommend, and you just got to look for fresh sign. But I know in the mountains with vertical country, they migrate. They keep migrating up. And my theory too, though, is like you said, the good found the water because the hens will find where they think is a good nesting habitat for them, and they'll peel off and start nesting in that area, which will hold the toms in a particular area for a period of time. But this is just my personal theory. What happens is other hens will keep going up to find other nesting areas.
Oh.
And the tom, simple biology, the toms are going to follow the hens.
That's right.
So again, I think the process is the hens find suitable nesting habitat. Toms, so if the hens decided she's done, toms go look for other hens. And those hens are migrating up into the green up.
Interesting. Yeah, I didn't think about that too. That there'll be competition amongst the hens for nesting areas around the perennial water.
No, there's competitions amongst the hens for the toms too. I mean, you've
Sure.
seen that where we've been calling. It's like I was having this conversation with somebody the other day. It's like the last thing I want to hear is a hen call after a tom goes.
All right.
That's the hen saying, "No, you're staying here." So, I think we've seen it too, where the hens will come in and attack the hen decoys.
Sure. Yeah.
And leave the tom out. I mean, there's an enormous amount of competition.
So yeah, I guess you talk about 2,000 vertical feet. That could be 5, 6, 7, 8 miles of migration on those.
Well, I mean, the bird, and I don't know which side of the hill the birds come from where I hunt, because you can go up over the top and back down on the other side. But that spot where you got your turkey last year is a good 20 miles from town.
Right. Yeah.
So
yeah,
they travel.
They do, and I guess you don't know how they break up into their coveys either, right? And which bird groups they are.
Yeah, and again, it's we had discussion before where I hunt out in the national forest is this is not agriculture. You don't have what I call resident agricultural birds. It's just no
Right.
such thing. And like I said it before, I have absolutely no idea where these birds roost. I have never seen one roosted ever in the 15 years I've been up in that area in one way,
Right.
shape, or form turkey hunting. And I've been hunting that area for 40 plus years, uh, between elk and deer and everything else. So now it's a matter of moving and finding birds. Although they'll be in it for sure. They're in an area for several days, if not weeks at a time. But then all of
Right.
a sudden they'll just disappear.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that's interesting. So yeah, that's my situation. I get a big river, then I get a highway, and then national forest back behind that. And so I'll go dig around and see if I can see any fresh sign. Or what about, should I do any calling or just listen in the
I,
scouting trips?
now I have hunted other areas where there's a lot more pressure, and like close in Portland, there's the White River. For
Yeah.
example.
Oh,
Those birds just don't talk because
uh,
so many darn people are up there calling to them.
right.
So that leads into the question where you're at is there a lot of hunting pressure?
Yeah, I don't think so, but I don't know for certain. But I don't think so. The local people I've talked to have they don't have much knowledge about the turkeys other than I saw them in town, you know, and they're not talking about anybody else who's hunting. So
That's perfect. Always when it's at some location. At the end of the day, like I use blocks to plants for birds. So it doesn't hurt to get maybe some sense that they're around. I would not sit there and and uh, call them constantly once you strike. I would just look at it in context to see if you can strike a bird. That way for future reference.
yeah, yeah, makes
Wouldn't
sense.
start and hammer on them like you're trying to call them in. That's the last thing you want to do this time of year.
Yeah. Now I just want to try to triangulate and see just any idea where they are if I'm not seeing sign. Well, that's good. What about any new gear that you're putting on the ground this year?
Yeah, I just one of the things I do is I transition from upland bird season to turkeys is I like to sit down and go back over the uh, maps where I've gotten birds before and look and see if there's maybe there's a change in the pattern. I think last year we shot some birds where we have had contact before, but had not sealed the deal in certain spots.
Yeah.
Um, there was a big fire in the area I hunt about 12 years ago. And it seems like it's slowly been shifting the birds off into the barren area as it regrows.
Yeah.
There's also an issue too of wolves in the area, which has really changed the character of the hunting. I think we talked about that. Birds are a lot quieter now. We were talking about hunting pressure. It's not just humans.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
So, but to that point too, I also go back and see, okay, what worked last year? What could we improve on? Do an equipment inventory and look. I'm worn out. Like you were talking about how many days I hunted in a season. Literally worn out a turkey vest in the last couple of years.
Yeah.
Uh, Box call slots open on both ends, which is not a good. So I went and looked and refined some of the kit. Got a new turkey vest because I'd worn the other one out. It was not so much camouflage for spring hunting as it was faded out for winter hunting.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
more white than camo.
Yeah. Right.
Um, did that. Of course, it was a sportsman show, and I have a bad habit. I think I've got like 7 different box calls now. So we have things of that nature. But one of the things I did is I looked at some of the areas where we hunt, and I came to the conclusion that having a blind makes sense in a couple of areas because we
Okay.
had some situations where we just couldn't close the deal because the turkeys it was just a little too open for the turkeys coming in. So
Yeah.
I did pick up a blind and I got one of the see-through ones. And let's see, I did go, and I sort of, I've got like 2 or 3 bags of turkey decoys. Just to
Right.
it's a bad buying habit as well. It's like with the box calls, but I've got some now that are much faster setup ones without, the original ones you had to get a metal stake out, put them in and thread it through and put it down, and the metal stakes were always rattling and so on.
Right.
I've got some that are more of a quick setup, um, kind of thing. But yeah, just sort of going through and going over the equipment. Really no different than the beginning of the fishing season or the upland season and things of that nature.
Yeah, you got to put your hands on everything, make sure it's still in working order, clean it if it needs it, and yeah.
But that's like the buildup.
Exactly.
The packing is half the fun.
Yeah. And then see, last year you got a 20 gauge shotgun, right?
Mhm, mhm.
And how did that work out for you?
That worked out really well. I carry the 12 in the truck as a backup gun, but I really like the 20 gauge. The more I handled it, the more I liked it. It's a lot, it's probably half the weight of the 12 gauge. I was toying with the idea of upgrading the sights on it. But I'm not mentioning any names, but the sight I was looking at, the new Red Dot sight, cost more than the shotgun. And it's like, that ain't gonna happen. At the end of
Right.
the day, if something happens, I just pull the Red Dot off and go analog, as I like to say. So I mean, I will give certain optics companies credit. I own more of their scopes than I have rifles.
I think we've unearthed how you spend your non-hunting days.
Yes, exactly. So yeah,
Oh,
I toyed with that idea, but backed away from it because I actually have multiple red dot scopes
yeah,
I can put on. I should carry spares with me because they're not the ones I do have, to be honest with you, aren't that durable. But at any rate, the 20 gauge worked out well. I settled on number fives. I don't really think you need the Magnum shells, but I use them just because I have them.
right.
Um, that kind of stuff. But uh, I'm really happy with the 20 gauge. Really, really am, just in terms of the weight and so on. Just much more pleasant to carry.
Yeah, and you still got an ounce or ounce and a quarter going out, right? Even with the
Yeah,
20.
ounce and a quarter and the three
Yeah,
inchers, and
yeah.
and then the other thing I did last year is I did spend some more time trying to refine the. I use I hunt by myself most of the time. It's really hard to call and shoot at the same time.
Yeah.
So I and get the gun up and everything, that kind of stuff. So I went to shooting bipod for the shotgun, and the first one I got for last year really as wasn't as ergonomic as it needed to be. So I upgraded that this year to a different one. It is a little bit more flexible, so you can move around and repoint the shotgun without moving too much.
Nice.
So I did that, and I've been practicing my mouth calling, which isn't something to start with.
Yeah, that's one of the things on my list. I gotta get focused on. But right now, I got the box call. I got the slate, and so that's what I'll be doing.
Yeah, the problem, like I said, when I'm hunting by myself, is you can't use those handheld calls in any way, shape, or form. If
Yeah.
for no other reason, once the bird gets close enough, you just can't have any movement.
Right.
So I swear sometimes I can see you blink.
Yeah. Well, good. Any other? So since I am going to be hunting by myself in these new areas, any other recommendations for me about how to?
If- Cover, if you're not finding birds or finding sign, cover more ground.
Mhm.
Um, just cover more ground. That's all I can tell you. 'Cause if you're not finding sign in some fashion, the birds aren't there.
Yeah.
You gotta like now. Again, I'm not familiar with the terrain and everything you're hunting, but where I'm at is if there's no birds are like us. I mean, they'll go through the timber and all that cross country. Generally, they'll walk the road just like we do.
Yeah.
And turkeys want the wider open spaces. I mean, they're no different than a lot of the other upland birds. Well, I should say a lot of the upland birds. For example, um, a lot of upland birds like peckers and huns, for example, and even quail to a certain extent, prefer more open ground. They don't like getting into the thicker, like I know chuckers for a fact do not like going into deep stumps because they can't
Yeah.
see anything coming.
Right.
And I think to a certain extent, turkeys are the same way. I've seen them walk around, rush to get to the decoys. They just don't generally. I mean, they'll find them in there sometimes too. But anyhow, the point is that walk the logging roads. I assume there's no logging roads in the area, and if you're not seeing sign, they're not there. It's that simple.
Yeah. So, I kind of find, at least on the map, where the flat spots are, where the spring is, where the roads are. They're kind of around there within about a mile. And I'll give a couple miles to walk up to it and cruise around the springs. I think that's kind of my plan. Any comments on that?
Oh, the other thing is, you were talking about calling earlier. My approach generally is not to do a lot of random calling unless I'm in a spot where I know there might be birds.
Yeah.
I do a lot of, again, we've done it together. I'll just hike along, waiting for the birds to talk, looking for sign, of course. But um, and the birds can be fickle. I honestly believe that it's a lot like fishing,
Yeah.
where there's some days they're just, they're not on the bite, so to speak, or
Yeah.
they're not talking.
Right.
And I don't care what you do, you're not going to get them. They're not interested that day.
Yeah.
I've gone from not hearing a bird for 2 days to hearing 7 or 8 of them in the space of an hour days later.
Yeah, it's
And
kind of like what you were saying, right? Like, we're not the only predators out there, and we don't know what's going on in the forest around where they're roosting or eating or nesting or whatever they're doing. And so, yeah, it's funny they go off the bite. I like
they do. They just, I distinctly remember, would have been 2012 or something like that. Opening day, beautiful early spring day, crystal clear, that kind of stuff. Warmed up well into the low 60s during the day. Never heard a bird the entire opening day. Nothing. No
Yeah.
gobbles on the roost. Nothing. The next day, same spot, they were gobbling all over the place. And
Right.
I don't know if it's, I'm no biologist, but the knee-jerk reaction is that it's got to be the pressure change or something that sets them off.
Yeah, that's
So
amazing.
yeah, but back to the point is cover ground. Look for sign. If you're not seeing sign, they're not there. The one thing I'm pretty set on in the way I do things is again I start going lower and then move up.
Yeah.
But I've noticed too that once the birds disappear from the lower elevations, don't waste any time going back down there because they don't migrate back down. They just don't.
So you think they're looking for a temperature zone, or is it just the cover in water that they're looking for in the higher elevations?
I think there's two things going on. It's certainly, again, we talked about the hens have to nest on relatively close to water because the
Yeah.
chicks can't move. Again, the chicks are not like a calf elk or a fawn or something like that. They can perhaps move as much as a mile just after they're first born to get to water. I mean,
Yeah.
chicks can't do that.
Their legs are
And-
too short.
Yeah, exactly. And so they have to have some proximity, and it seems like they prefer running water too.
Okay.
So active springs. And the country I hunt, one of the problems is, or not problems, but what happens throughout the season is you got to find perennial water. That's the other thing, and probably maybe not highlight that enough. But
Yeah.
you go in the spring and you go, oh, there's water everywhere. Well, it's seasonal water, and you've got to
Yeah.
find the spots that present perennial water. If you don't have that, those birds won't usually nest close by to that if it's just what I call seasonal water. And there's a
Yeah.
lot of seasonal springs, seasonal creeks up where I hunt. And I have the benefit, I go back and grouse hunt it in the fall when it's been dry for a while. So I know which
Yeah.
spots are truly perennial water. But back to the point, I think it has a lot to do with the green up as well. That the birds follow the green up. In fact, I think it's before in another podcast. One of the things that's easier to find is elk. And usually the turkeys are about whatever elevation the elk are at a
Oh,
particular time.
interesting. Yeah.
So yeah, it's a lot easier to spot the elk than it is the turkeys. Uh, but again, I think the process is the turkeys start migrating up, the hens will peel off when they find suitable nesting habitat and they're in season appropriate, because not all of them come into season at the same time too.
Sure. Yeah.
And that'll hold toms in an area for a while, and then the other hens will keep moving up and the toms will follow them up.
Yeah.
Because once a hen's nested, she's done.
Right. Yeah.
When she's sitting on her nest, she's like, no,
Yeah.
they're done. So the
She's
toms just
focused
go
on.
look for,
Yeah.
toms
Yeah.
go look for greener pastures.
Well, that's interesting. I appreciate the conversation, and I know at least boots on the ground and going for a hike is going to be a good part of what I do this season. But hopefully, I can stumble into one of these flocks that I've seen already once. And
Yeah. So like I said, I'm gonna have to go over and I'll probably see if I got the calendar in my head right. I'll probably get over there about the 12th of April and start scouting for several days,
yeah,
and just to get a sense of where the birds are at and what elevation they're at. So and then go from there, and good luck.
and then because you do hunt the full season, I mean, is it like do you get birds on the closing day like you do early season also? I mean, how does that work for you?
I've shot birds on opening day, and I've shot birds on May 31st, the last day of the season.
Yeah.
But anything I get later in the season tends to be way up higher.
Uh-huh.
Let me think here for a second. When we shot that bird you got last year, which was through there, the second week in May?
Yeah, second.
Yeah, second week in May. We shot that bird at almost 5,000 feet. The first bird of the season I shot, first full disclosure, the first chance we got was probably closer to around 2,800 feet.
Amazing.
The first week of the season, and a good 15 miles from where we shot your bird.
Right. Well, that's good. That really gives me a sense of how much ground I'm going to need to cover to be able to track down where these birds live as the season progresses.
Yeah. Again, if you're in an area, it's one of the benefits of where I hunt is it's on a lot of old logging roads, but almost, I'd say 90% of them are blocked off.
Yeah.
Which makes for absolutely a great turkey hunting experience. You don't have to worry about somebody coming screaming by in an ATV every 15
right.
minutes. I've been to other spots in the state of Oregon where they don't have those restrictions. And I'm not believing I've got a side-by-side and I use mine extensively, but there's a place for them and a use for them. But the unit I hunt is pretty blocked off in terms of the old logging roads, which is wonderful from that standpoint.
All right. Well, I sure appreciate the download, and I'll keep you posted on my progress. I get some scouting this weekend. I'm going to go do a little trout fishing, and then some scouting, and then the season in California opens next weekend. So I'll get a chance to.
You'll open on the 1st of April. Basically.
I think it's on the 30th. I think.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So I'll get a chance at least to go for a hike. So.
There you go. Keep me posted.
I sure will. I appreciate you getting up and getting on the podcast with me, and thanks again for sharing your wisdom, Mark.
My pleasure. Anytime.
All right, cool. Well, hang on for me while I close this down. Okay. Well, there you have it. Turkey hunting tactics in an area where you haven't hunted much before. It's always boots on the ground, find the perennial water sources, and go up in elevation as the season progresses. So I'll keep you posted on how things go. Appreciate you watching today, and I'll see you again real.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Nature Bound. Be sure to subscribe wherever you heard this podcast so you never miss a future episode. If you found value in today's episode, please share with someone who needs to hear it. Be sure to purchase your copy of the 7 Principles of the Magic Rock at EmanuelRose.com or on Amazon. We thank you again for joining us today, and remember to get nature bound.